Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay in the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Welcome to this special edition of the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Our interview with the greatest UCF athlete there is, for my money, and certainly someone who is on the Mount Rushmore of sports, not just in UCF, but maybe throughout the entire country, Michelle Akers. Of course, she's a household name if you follow the sport of soccer, But it's interesting that, she's known so much for what her exploits with the United States women's national team in soccer. She won 2 World Cups, Olympic gold, the second leading scorer in U.S. history behind Mia Hamm, whom she played with. But it's easy to forget that she played at UCF and at a time when not just college women's soccer was just getting going, but at a time when UCF was really laying down the path in the sport of soccer in the college ranks, particularly with the women's game. We spoke about in this interview a number of things, of course, having to do with her time at UCF and then moving into the U.S. women's national team and all the way through to today. And we are so thankful for Michelle taking the time for us to talk and sharing her memories of her time as a UCF Knight, then a UCF Golden Knight. But wow, what an amazing interview is. This probably goes down as one of my 3 favorite interviews in the history of this podcast, maybe my favorite of all time. Of course, you can follow us at UCF_Banneret on Twitter, Facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret, and of course, blackandgoldbanneret.com, where you can find our UCF 250. We're ranking the top 250 UCF Knights of all time, men's athletes, women's athletes, coaches, assistant coaches, and at the very top of our top 80 female UCF Knights of all time is our guest. Without further ado, let's get to our interview with the great Michelle Akers. Joining us is, I'm not afraid to say this, one of our heroes. No doubt about it. She is the greatest athlete in UCF history by far and away, an American hero in more than one way, played for the United States women's national team throughout the 80s and 90s, World Cup champion, Olympic gold medalist, FIFA all-time great, Michelle Akers, joining us here on the Black and Gold Banneret. Michelle, oh my God, it's you. Hi, welcome.
So happy to be here. Yeah, thank you.
We're so happy to have you. First of all, just update us real quick and update the UCF fans on what you've been up to of late.
Oh boy, lately, looking for face masks that fit right? So yeah. I don't know. I don't know if that's a problem for you guys, but God, it's so hard to find something that's not actually works good. But I am here. I'm near Atlanta on an 8-acre farm, and I'm a mom to a 15-year-old. We just got his learner's permit, so we're both trying to stay alive on the roads right now. And taking care of, I have a horse rescue and outreach nonprofit, 501c3. So I have a bunch of horses and animals here. And so, I take care of them and try to help other animals that need help and, are in between places and then, trying to find donations and pay for all the care of these guys and still maintain a little bit of sanity. I think that that possibility left a long time ago, though.
Well, we got you on here because obviously you're a UCF alum, a Hall of Famer, the greatest athlete in UCF athletics history. I just want to we talk a little bit about your UCF career. How did you end up at UCF? Because you mentioned people that follow you. You're from the West Coast. You're from Seattle, I believe.
Yeah, I know. So it's like I grew up in Seattle. I lived in near Santa Clara, California until like age however old you are when you go into third grade. And then lived in Seattle until it was time to go to college. So I was recruited as a soccer player, and all the schools were out east. There was nothing in the West Coast that offered a scholarship. There was no D1 programs. So I, was recruited by lots of East Coast schools, UNC and UConn and UMass. And then at the end of that, UCF called, and my stepmom, who happened to be the first female in a US Soccer Federation A licensed coaching course, knew Jim Rudy, who was the coach then. So she's like, "Oh, I love Jim Rudy." So I took a trip out there. As soon as I saw it, the school, and met the team, and I was like, "This is it. This is my place." So, made a decision right when I got home. I was like, "I'm going." So, and it was great because one of my friends from Seattle, actually, she was a bitter rival in our club team system there. Amy Allman, her name's Amy Griffin now. She went the same year, so we were paired up as roommates. So the first meeting in the dorm room was like, Then by 1 hour later, we're best friends forever because we're like totally birds flung out of their nests and in this new environment. So it was such a great time. So glad I decided to go to UCF.
Competitors respect, right?
Absolutely. And she was a goalkeeper too. So there was like this, the extra like that, but she was too nice to be hated. Right. So, my first conversation, I already loved her, and as did everybody else. She went on to play on the national team in the 91 World Cup. She was there too. So it was kind of a fun thing. A lot of UCF players actually were on the US team, Kim Wyant and Linda Gancitano. So that the whole program was really strong, very full of a lot of badass women.
It's something that I think gets kind of lost in the shuffle historically, is that UCF soccer, its history is more or less entwined with the U.S. women's national team, not just because of you, obviously, but because of all your teammates that played at that time. Tell me about when you guys got to UCF and you had this collection of talent that was before you. What was it like actually being at UCF at that time? I know you've been probably to campus a few times. You see how big it is now, but back at that time, it was pretty slim pickings out in East Orlando, wasn't it?
Yeah, right. It was a lot of open space, a lot of woods, right? And then the freshmen, they're always put in the dorm. So can't remember the name of the dang dorm, but the dorm that I was in was right next to the admin building, which, where the fountain is.
Was that like Orange Hall?
Yeah, it could have been Orange Hall.
Right.
Like I would look out my window, I could see the admin building and the fountain. So it was right on that circle. Is that circle still there? That little, you know what I'm talking about? It probably is not.
Oh yeah, it's still there. It's still there. It doesn't look the same as it did when Eric and I were students, but it's still there.
Okay. Oh my God. So many pranks happened in that circle. One time I was coming back from class and somebody's entire dorm room of furniture was out sitting on the grass right in front of the circle. It was hilarious. So, okay. Lots of great memories, obviously. So we were in the dorms, Amy Allman and I, roommates. And there was and that was a huge commuter school at the time. And so if you were on campus and you didn't have a car, forget it. You were like stranded there, hoping you had some microwave popcorn. because you couldn't, once the cafeteria closed, you couldn't walk. Like the only place to walk was the Nights Out pub, or there's like a 7-Eleven or Pizza Hut there. And to do that, like if it was like, starting to get nighttime and you're hungry, you would have to, like, it's dark, there's no lights. You would have to walk through the woods and cross, is it 50 Colonial? No, what's the?
There's Alafaya Trail.
Yeah, Alafaya Trail.
Yep.
Cross that road, which was only 2 lanes at the time. But it was pitch black, and you try to buy whatever you're trying to get. There's nothing. So it was kind of cool actually, because it was, everybody was really tight. So a lot of the athletes were on campus all the time. So in the cafeteria, you see the same people all the time, and small, tight knit group. You'd walk from that dorm there, Orange, across the blacktop, endless abyss parking lot. And I was from Seattle, so the 150 million degree heat, walking across the black asphalt. By the time you got to the training room, you were almost dead from dehydration and heat exhaustion. So, and then you go to the pool was there, which was a huge thing. And then the fields were right, extending beyond the pool. So, those were the places I frequented: the pool, the soccer fields, the training room, my dorm, obviously, in the cafeteria. I mean, that was basically the entire campus.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And for people that may not be aware, and we had Winston DeBose on recently, who played on the men's soccer team for Coach Rudy. He coached the men's and the women's back then. He created both of them. Describe what it was like to play for Coach Rudy, who you got to play for. And ironically, his last game as UCF head coach was the Final Four game when they played UMass, and he ended up going to UMass in '87, which is kind of weird now.
It was
you think
a conspiracy, I think.
Probably. But what was that like? Because he's coaching the men and the women at the same time and helping build both programs.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was relatively naive. I just thought that's kind of how it was. So I never questioned it until like later somebody brought that up, or, when Rudy left, and then, separate coaches came in for both programs. And I was like, oh yeah, oh my gosh. So it was really cool. Because he coached both the men and the women, and then he did goalkeeper sessions, which I found out later was kind of a rare thing. Like, not a lot of the goalkeepers at that time were getting specified training away from their team. And so the schedule was 1 to 2 were goalkeepers, and men's and women's goalkeepers trained together. So, which doesn't happen now, right? So just that part lent to a lot of our success, because we were, the women's program, we got to compete against the guys, and that obviously elevates your level of play. You got to play quicker and smarter, and the guys are physically bigger and stronger. So that's one of the reasons why we were successful, I think. So then 1 to 2 were the goalkeepers, and then 2 to 4 was the women's training, and then 4 to 6 was the guys. And I was out there all the time. So, I went to the goalkeeper sessions and begged, please let me participate, because it was like a, kid in a candy store. I loved shooting and doing all that stuff. So he always allowed that. And then we'd go into our own training, and then sometimes I would stay and train an hour with the men's team. And since he was the coach, he kind of got to govern all of that and run all that. And then both teams were extremely tight. We were huge supporters and advocates for each other. We were at everybody, the guys would go to the girls' games and vice versa. So it was a really kind of tight-knit group of people, that very unique, to the time and to Rudy's coaching of the entire program.
What a cool community that you guys were a part of back then. Because you were there, and I feel like, how important was that to you, especially in '85, because you came in '84, and then you missed the '85 season, came back in '86 to play '86 through '88. But tell us about '85. What happened, and how did you get through the challenge of not playing that year?
So that was the summer. Let me see, was that right? The summer of '85 was the first national team. first ever women's national team. And we went to Italy. And so Kim Wyant, who was the UCF goalkeeper at the time, was the goalkeeper for that first U.S. national team. And Linda Gancitano, who's defender for UCF, she was on that first U.S. team. And then Amy Allman. So we all went, and we kind of got our asses kicked. We were tough, but we weren't very soccer, savvy. And the other countries might not have been as athletic as us, but they knew soccer better. So we just got, played. And, but each game we got better. So in that tournament, I hurt my shoulder and my knee. So I think I sublexed my shoulder, and then I injured my knee, came back. And then my knee, I ended up finding out I tore meniscus. So I was halfway through the season, or maybe a couple games into it when I got the diagnosis, and they were just like, you'll have to redshirt. So that was devastating because, you're there so far away from home, and that my primary activity was soccer. And so to be taken away from that, I did go to my classes, but who cares, right? Like I was like, that's just the thing I have to do to play. So to kind of be separated from my team and not be able to be there in the way I wanted to was rough. That was hard. So I had to, have a surgery. I think that was my first surgery too. But I met Dr. Barnett, who was with Jude Orthopedic at the time. So having that injury was worth meeting him, because I just adored him. He was the best ever. And then when spring came, I was ready to go. So I guess it made me even more excited to be out on the field with everybody, and looking forward to the entire next year and what we could do together.
Back then, people may not realize the NCAA tournament for soccer was very small. It was very few teams, so it was not easy to get in. There was no guarantees to get in, because you had some great teams there. You mentioned you play with Kim Wyant, who's currently a coach. She's in the Hall of Fame at UCF. Amy, you talked about, was a great played I think also was cross country and rowing while she was at UCF.
Yes.
You played with Jean Veris, I believe, right?
Yes.
And she was an All-American.
Jean Veris, Mary Veris, her sister.
Yeah. So describe that group, because in a lot of ways, and Jeff mentioned it earlier, you're also part of history building this UCF tradition, great tradition with goalkeeping, great tradition with success on the pitch. But you're also in the meantime, you're making history building the U.S. national team at the same time. I
know. I feel like, I think that was one of the things that I really enjoyed about UCF, and, as a freshman coming from Seattle, that there was already this strong tradition. It was FTU before that. I don't even know when it changed names, but it wasn't too long. They changed. It wasn't UCF for too long before I came. But the UCF soccer tradition and how Rudy, it was so integrated and so together, that to me was, I came into that. And, as a freshman, I thought for sure I was going to be cut. Every day I walked to practice, and Amy Allman and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be cut. I'm going to be cut. Amy's like, I'm going to be cut. No, I'm going to be. So I had no idea how good I was until really the team started teasing me about all these newspaper articles and attention. And I was like, oh, I might be good. But Jean Veris, Mary Veris, there was a bunch of New Yorkers and people from Chicago and St. Louis. And so they were so tough and intimidating and inspiring that most of the time I just put my head down and was like, how fast can I run? How high can I jump? Oh my gosh, I just want to make this team. So that part was, the UCF tradition for me was for me to live up to. And then the national team started. And, at first I had no idea what a national team was. I was like, it was kind of like I was living in a closet or something. I don't know why I didn't know what a national team was, but it wasn't until I got to Italy and our coach, Mike Ryan, was like, you guys need to understand the importance of being on a national team, the U.S. national team. And he made us sing the U.S. national anthem out loud, shouting it out loud, standing on the field with our hands on our hearts, so he could try to help us understand the privilege of playing for the USA. And so doing all that together and having like my UCFers alongside me, it was, I don't know, there's a huge sense of pride about that. And then walking on the field against other teams, you always were like, you guys, we're the best, there's like family pride in that. So it was really cool. It was just a cool time to be a part of all that.
How did UCF get you prepared to play, obviously, the rest of the career that you would have post-UCF, which obviously everybody knows about with the U.S. national team, but how did UCF prepare you for that, for post-UCF life, beyond not only playing for the U.S. national team, but even outside soccer?
That's such a great question. No one's asked me that before. In part, I think because Rudy was cool about allowing me to train in with the men all the time. And, that doesn't happen now. It just doesn't happen. So, when I trained, I would train with the goalkeepers, and which were guys, half of them were guys. And some of the guys players would come out and do that. And he kind of treated us as equals. So then that team he recruited for the women's side, like I said, they were tough as nails. They were like brick house tough women. And so I kind of had to survive them, you know what I mean? And then they kind of helped me grow up and figure out how to succeed playing in that kind of environment when, they would just run you over. They would, call you F and F and F and F. Unless you're going to train hard, get off the field, they would yell at people. And so it was like, oh my God, I was horrified. So growing up with that, and then being able to train in with the men, and then we played all the time. The guys and me and some of the girls would play small-sided stuff on our own in the spring. So it was kind of this, I don't know. It was like an opportunity to really compete to your highest level without any interference and just encouragement. So once I started playing with the national team, I was like, oh, these Viking Norwegians are trying to knock me over. Oh, I've had worse than that, right? Because I had these New Yorkers kicking the shit out of me my entire UCF career. So. So that's one of the ways that UCF totally spurred my success at the higher levels later on.
Now, what's fascinating, as I mentioned, was a small tournament back then, the NCAA tournament. So it was very hard to get in. But then when you got in most of your career, you had to deal with North Carolina.
Damn Tar Heels.
Yeah.
Right?
Like your last game as a UCF Knight was in '88 against North Carolina in the second round, which is really close to the final, the College Cup, what it's now known as the College Cup. But describe what the tournament was like back then compared to now when it's so big. I got to go to the College Cup a couple of years ago when it was in Orlando, and it's so big now. It's televised. It's 64 teams. That was not the case when you played. Describe what it was like when you played. And, your senior year, for people that don't know, you won the Herman Trophy, the National Player of the Year, which was given out. I think it was the first year that it was given out.
I was the first year. How crazy. You're good. So the Herman Trophy, oh my gosh. So Bill Parker calls me, Akers, come down to the office. Something came in the mail for you. I was like, what? So I go down to the office. He's got this box. He shuts the door and is like, he's opening it up, and I open it up, and it's like a broken trophy. It's broken into pieces.
Oh,
and
no.
It has a letter in it. Congratulations, Michelle Akers. You've, been awarded this Herman Trophy, and this is okay. So I was like, okay, then, and the trophy's like in pieces. And so I was like, okay, thanks. Okay, but I had no understanding of what that was, and then that trophy was broken. So I And it was a letter. I don't know. So I was just like, okay, thanks. But then Bill was like, Michelle, you don't understand. This is important. This is this, and trying to tell me what it was. So it wasn't until much, much later, after I graduated, and then they asked me, the Herman people asked me to come speak. And then by then it was a big deal. There was this big event. It was televised. It was, all these, Pittsburgh Steeler people were there. Like, it was a massive thing. So when I went to speak, I was like, holy crap, I won that. I had no idea it was this big. So that's when I started going, wow, this was a huge thing. So I don't know. It's cool to be that first one. And I'm sort of glad it was the experience that it was. Because it just, I don't know, it seems indicative of the times. And so, I think that trophy is there. I think they sent another one, maybe. I don't even know, but I think it's at UCF still. And yeah, as far as the NCAA tournament, it was small, difficult to go through, and you had to have kind of a pristine record coming out of the season, and some luck because some of the teams, the rivalries were so intense and very close. It came down to sometimes comparing the schedules kind of subjectively, and also again going with who scored the most goals. And so it's like, oh my gosh, so really tight. And so I think one time we didn't make it. It was devastating because it was so tight. And then, when we'd go through the damn Tar Heels, UNC was always in our way. We always had to get through them, so Anson recruited me to play there. And I said no. I just thought he was so arrogant, and I just don't want to, I don't want to play for that guy. And then later, I have to play against him, and then they beat us. I think we tied him in season, and then we lost to them.
Yeah.
Okay. What a memory. I'm like impressing myself. I need to eat the same breakfast all the time because that must be helping. So, Anson, there's, inside I was like, oh, I got to kind of vindicate myself and beat them. But my team was so intimidated by them, the Tar Heels, the UNC team, and I didn't know why. And then I think we played them in that game at UNC. They had this Tar Heel blue track around the field, and Emily Pickering was their center midfielder. She was the best friend of some of the New Yorkers that were on the UCF team, Mary and Jean Veras. And so, her words, every other word was F this and F that. And she was just a badass, tough, she might as well have been like a gang leader for all I knew. And one time I was on the sideline trying to get a ball, and they smashed me so hard. I flew onto the track. They broke my sports bra somehow. And when I opened my eyes, all I could see was like Tar Heel blue track. Like, I was just like, oh, I get it now. I see why everyone's so intimidated by these guys. And then we lost. So that was sad. And I remember Anson coming over and shaking my hand, and I just was like, I was a bad loser. So every year, every time we played them, we gunned for them, and just like everybody else did playing UNC. And I think, we had one of the best shots of beating them, although we never did.
Well,
one of
that was the thing. I think for people that don't understand, like, they didn't seed the teams really back then. So really,
right.
you could have been the two best teams in the country. It just so happens that they placed you early in the tournament because maybe geography just worked out that way.
It was geography. It was just, that's how they did it. So it was just, gosh, I didn't think about now, now I'm like, now that you bring that up, I get, we should have gone through. We should have been in Final Four. We were that good, but just, we had to play the team that won the whole tournament every year in the first round most times. So it was just, which, to me is like, okay, great, bring it. Might as well.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I feel like in today's era, you would have been a national seed. You probably would have been hosting up until the College Cup, probably more than likely.
So true. Yeah, that's so true. Because the year before I got there, they were in the Final Four. And so the goal was, we're going to win. We're competing to win the national championship. And so it was that intensity and with that intention throughout every match we played.
Now, the last win you had as a UCF Knight was in that 88 tournament against Virginia. They had a freshman, I believe, named Amanda Cromwell, who we all know very well. Yeah. A decade later, we would get to know her, obviously taking over the UCF program, and had a great run from 99 to 2012. Obviously, currently the head coach at UCLA, and now part ownership of an NWSL team, actually. So she's doing well for herself. But talk about Amanda Cromwell, because you've known her for a long time. I know she's talked about you glowingly when we've talked to her. What was she like to play against, get to play with? Because I know at times you played with each other on the team, and then obviously following her, taking over the program a decade later.
I know. So this is even funnier. So maybe I can add, because you already know so much, dang it, which is great. But I was like an interim coach for like a year, or an assistant coach maybe for another year. And Bill Barker had me I call her Sal Amanda was her nickname. Call Sal Amanda Cromwell and recruit her to come to UCF, and she turned me down. So I was like, whatever. So we played her college team. I think we did, didn't we? No, we didn't.
In 88, your first round tournament, you beat them. And got before North Carolina. Yeah.
So she always talks about that, right? Like, you guys beat us. But then I'm always like, well, you didn't come to UCF. I asked you to come and you didn't come. So it was always like a funny rivalry. And then, later, so she was on the national team. She got on the national team, and oh my God. So she's a defender, outside back, stopper type player. And tough as nails. And so she would mark me in national team practices. And I've always said our national team trainings are like, they're harder than playing against any other team. So if I'm playing against my own teammates and doing well, I'm not going to have a problem with anybody else. That's what I always believe. So, but she and I had the most epic battles and beat the living crap out of each other every practice, like fighting each other. And, she would like punch me and grab me and kick me and tackle me. And I would be like, and then Tony, our DeChico, our national team coach would have, come on, you guys, knock it off. And then afterwards, we would go out to Outback Steakhouse and have, their chicken salad and a cold beer and laugh hysterically about, oh, you did this to me and I did that to you. And so we were great friends amidst all of that. And also, training together because she was so damn tough. She was slow as molasses, thank God. So that was my one thing I could beat her on, and I was taller, so I could jump higher than her. But she was so dang tough, and she was always kind of on the bubble of that national team. But because she was such a positive force on that team, and she worked so hard, she always made the teams at the last second. We called it the lingering acts. And she always epically escaped the lingering acts from the coach to make it, just because of her just willing, the willingness she had to do whatever it takes and to train so hard and then also contribute to the team in whatever way she could. And she did. Then in 96 Olympics, right before that, I think it was like 2 months before that, maybe 3 months, she tore her ACL. So she was on the roster to play on that 96 Olympics, which was the first Olympics for women's soccer ever in the Olympics. She tore ACL, which was devastating. And she had surgery in Alabama and then rehabbed like a madman. And I said, come just live with me in my apartment, because we were in residential training for the Olympics in Orlando. Come live with me and train and go to PT, and it'll be a world record if you're ready, but let's just try it. You can do it. And she ended up making the alternate team. It was like 3 months after an ACL, and she was like ready to play and was on the alternate team for the Olympics. So that's what kind of person she is. And we're still in touch to this day, and, still competing against each other in one way or another.
She mentioned, I think, to us when she was on with us, that you had an influence in her taking the UCF head coaching job. Is that true?
Well, yes, I kind of talked her into it, but it's sort of like, she was devastated still about her career. She wanted to play longer, but it was obviously, the level of the team had risen. She had gotten injured, and it was just a gap she couldn't decrease. She wasn't going to make it. So it was it's a difficult thing to reconcile, the loss of a dream. And so, and she, been with us. We'd all been together as a group for so many years. So it was difficult to kind of let that go and move on. So she tried some coaching, I think, at UMBC, and then UCF. And she liked it, but she didn't. But she was grieving this loss. So finally, the door opens at UCF, and I was like, "Just Sal, you're gonna love it. You're just try it. And then it was there that she, she kind of got over everything and fell in love with coaching. And she's became and is now really a great coach and very successful.
We'll be back with more with Michelle Akers after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Now let's return to our conversation with U.S. soccer great Michelle Akers.
Michelle, I wanted to ask you about the very first Women's World Cup, because everyone remembers 99.
Yeah.
But very few remember, sort of the Apollo 11 of the Women's World Cup.
That's good.
In 91, right? You guys were walking on the moon. The tournament took place all the way out in China, okay? And I scrounged some clips on YouTube, and it's you can tell that it's it was a pretty well put together tournament, but it kind of looks like everything is kind of like we're trying this out for the first time. Let's see how this goes. You had a tournament for the ages. You scored 10 goals.
Yeah.
4 in one game, I think, against Chinese Taipei. You scored the only 2 goals for the United States in the final, and you guys win the very first Women's World Cup in China in November of 1991. What was it like competing at that level for the very first time on a worldwide stage?
Yeah, and there's so much happening for that World Cup. God, I mean, there's so many levels to that World Cup. I should write a book about it. So it was an experiment by FIFA. Can these chicks play? And will they embarrass us if we, actually host female soccer? Will they embarrass the men's game? Sincerely, that's what it was. So that's why it was called the M&M's Cup. The games were 80 minutes long, and the debate was, should they play with size 4 balls? Because God help us, women could not kick a size 5 soccer ball. and cannot play that 90 minutes like the guys do. So that's why the games were 80 minutes. It was in Guangzhou, China, but then in cities north and the surrounding cities in these stadiums in China. Oh my gosh! So it was a massive challenge to exist as an athlete in China, because the food was just horrible. Like, so we brought our own food, but still you have to supplement it with the Chinese food. And what we ended up eating mostly was, so M&M's M&M's was the sponsor, Mars. We probably ate 5 or 6 Snickers a day, right? Trying to get enough calories in you, and eat. The water, it was very extremely polluted and poor. The communities were very poor and unsanitary conditions. Toilets were just literally holes in the ground with these, footprints on either side. And good luck with that. Okay, sometimes there were troughs, and there, there's a line of people. So you would not want to be this person in the bathroom trough with everything running down. It was like mind blowing. So, the air, you blow your nose, you'd be black. So it was really a challenge. And then the games, were every other day. So you only had 1 day rest. And so, which is so strange, because the guys had, 3 days in between and luxury travel. And then we're in these poor conditions and are playing these, hardest matches in the world every other day. So it was just crazy. But it's the World Cup. And so the U.S. had so many, the U.S. was not known for its soccer, and actually was ridiculed by the world because we were kind of behind in the game. And so for a women's U.S. team to be there saying that, we were like, we're going to win. We're winning this thing. Was kind of like, what in the hell are these Americans talking about? They're being dumb as usual in this sport of soccer, because the rest of the world rules. Well, Anson Dorrance is an amazing coach, and he had an ability to pick the right players. And he had Mia Hamm, Christine Lilly, Julie Foudy. They were 15 when they came on the team. I think there were 16 in that World Cup. They're major factors. And he knows how to pick players and put a team together. And he played to our strengths. He allowed us to play to our strengths. So the strategies were score more goals than the other team. And so we did. And then we ended up winning. And so that for, in so many levels, women's soccer, soccer number one in the U.S., women's soccer for FIFA and the rest of the world. It boosted the American, I guess, the view of Americans, even though females playing the game was kind of still looked down upon by the rest of the world. But it boosted all these countries these women in other countries who saw this World Cup aired at, 3 a.m. across the world, to set their sights for something bigger. And then FIFA was like, we have something here, because the crowd, the stadiums were filled. Their stadiums were, 60,000 people. It was the focus of that entire country. So it was really a perfect place to have it, because the entire country was just watching this World Cup, which then said a lot to the rest of the world. So from that is how the real next World Cup in '95 happened. And that was the beginning of women's soccer in the US, but also around the world.
Really caused that a big explosion. I mean, everybody talks about the 99. There's been documentaries that have been made about it, rightfully so. But without 91, 99 probably doesn't happen, right? I mean, that was a significant moment in the history of the sport.
Yeah, it definitely wouldn't have been. I mean, without that 91 World Cup, because after that 91 World Cup, Pele was there, okay? So prior to that 91 World Cup, I had signed the first endorsement agreement for a female with Umbro, and Pele was Umbro at the time. So I got to spend time with him, and then there were some incredibly influential people within Umbro that were connected worldwide to the game. And so Pele, I got, spending time with him, and then these men who were true advocates for the game, men and women included. Then I went around the world, and I became this kind of like, spokesperson for women's soccer. But our team was already that. And then I got to be included in a FIFA, this prestigious kind of FIFA committee with Beckenbauer and Pelé and all these amazing people. So I was representing women around the world there, and they kept seeing the promise or the benefits of, continue growing this game for female football, they called it. So that World Cup was everything. That World Cup was everything. But in saying that about the U.S., and we were the best team there, but Norway had been playing professionally in their country for years as female football. Same with Sweden, a lot of the European countries, Denmark. So they, these little hotspots for women around the world, and then coming together, and then going away again, and then having rivalries that were really intense and exciting, and the game kept improving. We all just stepped through the door at the same time. So that was really an incredible opportunity. And you're right, it was the complete catalyst.
So 1995, the Women's World Cup was held in Sweden.
Yeah.
You suffered several injuries in that World Cup that was really the reason why the United States ended up finishing in third, lost in the semifinals, I think, to Norway. They eventually win it. And that sets the stage, though, for 4 years later when the USA hosts. Tell me about when you guys found out that you were going to host in 99 with the chance to get back on top. What was that like for you?
So 95 World Cup, we lost. So I got injured in the first 5 minutes of the first game. A Chinese player speared me on a corner kick. We were defending a corner kick or something, and she knocked me in the head with her head, and I went down with concussion, and then split open my head and tore up my knee, my right knee, my MCL, PCL. So I was kind of done. I ended up playing, but I was one-legged, and Norway was just a power. We lost to them in the semis. So that was, and how they celebrated that win, just kill it. It burned inside. It was like, oh God, because we stepped off that field together, just, feeling awful. And our captain at the time, April Heinrichs, she went to UNC. She said, we should never forget this. We can never forget this, and let's use this to beat them the next time we play them. Well, it happened that the Olympics were right after that, and that was in the U.S., which was amazing. And we, played Norway. We beat them, but losing to them forced us to kind of refocus and I guess, decide how good we wanted to be, and then commit to that as a team. So we had our residential training camp. We actually went on strike before that Olympics to get more support for our team. So there's a lot going on, and we won. And I think that Olympics, the success of that Olympics, and the that number, the crowds and the feedback from the media and the country and the world, that's what I think helped the U.S. Get that 99 World Cup. And then from that time, it was like, okay, we're going to do a bid to get the World Cup, and how amazing it was going to be. But there was really a lot of opposition still in the U.S. from the media, from the culture, about soccer in general. And then, female sports were, trying to gain a foothold still. So there was a lot to do, and a lot of hard work, and a lot of talented people made that happen. And then once the cities were named, it became like it was like an entire push for our team to work every game, every moment possible to create more awareness about this team, the game, and our personal stories, which that entire World Cup team, not just the team on the field, my team, but the team that put the entire event on. It was an amazing group of people. And so when we finally won, because we had to win for that to be a success as well. It wasn't just butts and seats, which it was, but we also had to win. So all of that happened afterward. And then afterwards it was kind of like, oh, we did it, so many people, we did it. And that was the kind of the clinching point for the women's side, but also for soccer to be kind of recognized as one of the major sports in the USA, along with so many others.
Forgive me for going backwards too, because I'm sorry I glossed over basically the '96 Olympics, which I remember watching that gold medal match in Sanford Stadium in Georgia. And you guys defeated China 2-1 in front of 76,000 people. I worked in Georgia for a while, so I know how big that place is. And it was that kind of like a taste of, wow, okay, 76,000 people to watch us play China with so much on the line, especially in that game, not just winning it, but winning it in front of that atmosphere you must have felt like, wow, there's something cooking here, right?
Well, yeah, it's, in a way it's kind of like I was two different people all the time. I've been feeling like, wow, we have police escorts, we have support, like there's fans yelling for our team, as you walk out, people are like, wow, and that's part of being an American athlete in the Olympics in America, but it's also was indicative of the kind of the popularity of our team and the growth of our fan base and the recognition through the media, right? In these Olympic Games. So it was sort of like, wow. But at the same time, it was like, yeah. Okay. So and it wasn't the first time that we played in front of a big crowd. But the Olympics is something wholly different. But it's so amazing to play in front of a big crowd, because it's almost like you're one. It's almost like it's not like there's no separation between the feeling of the energy is shared. So when you walk in, it's almost like it hits you like a huge wave. The sound there, the people, because you walk in and they're like, and so it kind of physically hits you. And I felt it just like lift me up. The fans, that energy, that carried me throughout that. So that it wasn't a distraction to me at all. It was almost like, I was being infused with superpowers. So that really was a huge difference and huge benefit to being able to compete at that level for so many matches. And I was injured. I still had this torn MCL. It was wrapped up all the time. They said I wouldn't be able to play in the Olympics, but I was like, hell yes, I'm playing. And I had great PTs in Orlando. Rodney DeGrette was my PT. And so, it just was really like a beyond earth experience when you are in those environments with so many people with so much on the line. It's really cool.
It really was. And now you got to participate in the Olympics in the States, in Atlanta, and in the World Cup in the States. I mean, that's very rare. Not many can share that.
So.
And really two significant events. I mean, the Olympics was the first one ever for soccer held. The World Cup, Rose Bowl. It's one of the most watched television sporting events in history. And obviously it set documentaries and really set the standard for U.S. soccer for many years after that, where every team was compared to your team. Even the recent success now of the U.S. soccer, they get scrutinized based on the success that you had. What's it been like for you to see the growth of U.S. soccer to the point where they're treated like any other sports team in the States, where they're scrutinized? Joe Ellis would get scrutinized for any tactical move she did. I remember Coach Cromwell, I had her on the radio during the World Cup. She was 2015, I think, and she was upset about the criticism. I'm like, well, that's a positive because that means people care.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I criticized Jill Ellis. I mean, and yet I was like, you know, the biggest support, like it's me out there. That's my blood, sweat, and tears. Those are my genes. I mean, I'm part of that team. I feel like they are part of me out there. So I'm like living every minute on the field that they're out there. I'm out there. But you're so right, because it means, you know, being criticized as an athlete is part of sport. And if you're criticized, that means people are watching and they care. Or if their criticism is heard, then, you know, other people are listening, and then that gains, you know, more popularity, whatever, the controversy. So I love that. And I loved Rapinoe when she was tweeting, I will not go into the White House. Trump is this and that. And then Trump was saying things back forth. I was laughing so hard. I was like, oh, this is awesome. We've made it. Way to go, guys. So that it's so fun. And it really is indicative of how far the sport has come and that people care. So yeah. And I mean, how far have we come? It's night and day compared to when I was playing, and yet it's still a lot the same. And we have so far to go. And the teams now, yeah, they are being scrutinized and compared to that 99 team or that era. But I mean, isn't every team who has that kind of legacy? I mean, Lakers, I mean, Gretzky's teams. I mean, it's just so everybody is, and I think it's a good thing. And if we can take that and make it a positive, because some of them for a while the more current players were pissed off by that, and they were like, "This is our team. Those guys are not us." But and I got that. But it's. I mean, the reality is it's great to be criticized, because that means you're doing something great and you're growing the game, which is great. But you know what? They also, they won in their own right. They you know, made it happen. It's their own team. It's their own style of play. It's their own challenges. And we happen to come before that, and we open doors for them to allow them to build whatever team they want to build. And damn it, they better be world champions.
Yeah, that's at prime time. I mean, these games draw big numbers on television. People care, and even outdraws the men. And you know, and that's been obviously a lot of topic recently with the women there with U.S. soccer and that whole. What's been your thoughts as you've seen that kind of going back and forth with the U.S. national team, women's team, and the U.S. soccer, and the debate over finances and you know.
Frustrating. It's so frustrating. So frustrating. It really is. I don't know. I guess the fact that it's still happening it just makes it more transparent that there's something wrong with U.S. soccer. You know, there's changes that need to be made. Because there, you know, the argument can be made, okay, well, the women aren't getting as much worldwide exposure as the guys, or there's, you know, a different level of demand, perhaps. Okay. But at the same time, there's not been an adjustment. And then, you know, for the last president of U.S. soccer to come out and make a huge statement with all these eyes that went over that statement, both legal and U.S. soccer-wise, saying that the women's efforts and the women's ability isn't up to par as the men, so therefore they should be paid less. Just really, to me, it just said it all. That's what's been going on the entire time. So it's just frustrating. I'm waiting. I have a 15-year-old son, and I have a brother, my dad and my mom, but I'm waiting for other moms and dads to stand up and say, this is bullshit. I don't want this for my daughter. It should be equal opportunity for the job done. And corporations have, the dads and moms in these corporations, they have got to stand up. And so I guess what it comes down to is money matters more right now. And so, this social shift that's going on now, Black Lives Matter and everything that's going on, maybe that will cause more social change, wider spread for the entire population in the U.S., male, female, all colors, all, religions. It just, so I'm, it's frustrating to watch. It's frustrating to see it happening, and it's 2020.
Michelle, if you were put in charge of U.S. soccer right now, what would you do? How would you are the number one things that you would change right now?
Yeah. First of all, I never would be in charge of U.S. soccer. I don't want that job, and I wanted to stay as far away from me as possible. I don't know, in part because until you're in that position, you don't know all the things that are playing into that scenario and that situation. I think, what is needed is, I would like to see U.S. soccer change more to utilize like what's working for other countries and how they have things set up, how they work, how they manage their soccer population and their ability to develop the game and also make money, and implement those things with people who are capable of doing the jobs that need to be done. That business and sport mixed together. It's, the NBA is, the NFL, they all have they're all kind of set up as an examples of how to set up a professional league, but also a developmental system across our huge country, which is a really incredible challenge. But I think it's just kind of gotten away with being, run by a select few of people and not held accountable enough. So I would want that to be changed. Just that. So other than that, God help me. It just needs to be someone that's extremely skilled in putting all those components together, which it's a really hard job. Cindy Parlow is my teammate. She's the president of U.S. Soccer right now. God help her. God help her. She's got a lot to figure out.
It is a tough job, but the one thing though that, as a fan of the game and as a fan of you and as a fan of UCF and women's soccer in particular, that's encouraging for us is seeing how much success the NWSL has had. Yeah. Especially this year in pulling off the tournament under the circumstances of COVID-19 and doing so successfely. Yeah. I mean, I remember the WUSA and how you guys tried and it didn't work. Yeah. The NWSL is working now. Yeah. And it's exciting. And there's growth there. You have to, I mean, as a fan, I love to see that. What do you think? Yeah, I'm same here. I'm pumped. I'm so excited and relieved, right? There's some really powerful people now, very talented people now running
this league, invested people, and I'm not just financially, but in all ways, for the game, this game to grow, for this league to grow.
Not just Amanda Cromwell, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And the players, they're growing the game. They're doing, what I did, what we did, have been doing for, my entire career, but they're doing that too, and playing soccer. And this year, especially, they're the only team out there. They're the first league out there playing in COVID. I mean, that's scary to me. And I'm so proud of them. Like, what a major decision that must have been, as people deciding to go play amidst this huge pandemic. And
the easy thing would have been for them to be like, no, we're not going to play. That would have been the easy thing to do.
It would have been, everyone would have been, yeah, of course, right? But and then the league, the leadership also is like, yeah, we're doing this. And so I thought that was so, again, like I look at the actions of these organizations like US Soccer, for instance, but the NWSL, it just says so much about who is participating and who is leading, and the quality of their, like this tournament, the quality of play was great. We didn't hear anything about anybody getting sick. The Orlando team dropped out. They were safe, and conservative, yet incredibly risky and courageous, and showed unbelievable, unprecedented leadership, and coherence. So I thought, I'm so impressed. I'm so proud of those guys, and it really says a lot about these people in that league.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. Hopefully this, getting that attention, they got big numbers for their championship that could build for them moving forward. And of course, Cromwell's now, and Mia Hamm, your former teammate, part of that group with the LA franchise over there. So that's a big market, trying to grow the league professionally here in the States, because the game is popular in the college game, and it's popular international soccer for women's soccer. How do we get women's professional soccer to maybe reach that level of interest and popularity? I think it's going to be the interesting thing, and I think stability is a big part of that. Yeah,
you're so right. And what's been interesting to me is, these celebrities that are coming on board as owners, and also past players coming on board and working with and supporting current players. It's kind of this, it's becoming enmeshed, just like the other successful sports leagues, which is super exciting. It's super exciting. And that finally, I think, is such a huge step for this NWSL. It's just really super exciting.
We'll be back with more with Michelle Akers after this. Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Now let's return to our conversation with U.S. soccer great Michelle Akers.
So I got to ask you about. I wanted to pull it back to UCF a little bit, and we mentioned, in '99, of course, your performance in the final against China is the stuff of legends, and there you were when Brandy Chastain scored the goal on the final penalty kick. You were, I think, in the locker room getting an IV because you gave literally everything you had left and then some. This was after you scored the game when you goal in the semis. Concussion, shoulder problem, everything, and you were dealing with chronic fatigue syndrome at the time too. Is that right? So
it's kind of a rough day.
I know, but at the end of the day, you come through, and we don't have to rehash that, because, like we said, what has been written about that we don't remember. But I guess if you could give us just your lasting memory of that day and that moment when 90,000 people go crazy.
That
the U.S. has won the World Cup.
Yeah, it was. So when we walk out there. So you walk out there, and then that crowd hits you, all the energy. And for me, I love the national anthem. Oh my gosh, it's just something. It's so it's like, because you're out there, you're playing for your country, USA, and you are like, I was so aware of who I was representing and how well I wanted to represent, every single person, and just the USA as like us, right? No pun intended, US and us. So there's that huge sense of pride when you have that kind of red, white, and blue, and you're walking out with your team, and then the national anthem's playing. It's really poignant. And then those jets fly like overhead, and it seems like they're 2 inches above your head, and it's so loud, and the crowd's going crazy. That is like, wow, that's just epically, it's just mind blowing. So that is like one memory that I never will forget, and it's extremely tough to top. And then we play the game. It's really, back and forth, really hard game with lots of drama. And the last minute of regulation, I got punched in the head by my goalkeeper, Brian Scurry, and that knocked out, and I got a concussion. And so they walked me off the field, and so I missed everything after that. And I was in this medical room underneath in some bowels of the stadium somewhere, with the IVs and like ice everywhere. And I can remember our team Doc Adams says, "Akers, snap out of it. We got a helicopter to take you to the hospital. You snap out of it right now." He's yelling at me, and there's whatever, they're working on me. So then I came to, like, there was a small like TV in the corner, and then I the lights went on in my head, and I saw Brandy take the kick and then do the celebration. The entire room like jumped through the ceiling, and then I was like, okay, I'm going out. So I like ripped out the IVs, and that's not that's kind of a messy thing when that happens. And so I'm heading. So I go out there, and I had to get through President Clinton's bodyguards because they're all there. He was there. So we get out there, and standing, going onto the podium. We get our medals, and I'm like being held up by people. I was just wiped out. And the team then does this victory lap, and I just stood in the middle of the field, and I was with Doc Adams. So all that security, there was just massive security. Like I could barely I was inside, like where, it was okay to be for the participants, and yet the bodyguards, I couldn't even get through the bodyguards. And then guess who, like, just as Mish, and it's Amanda Cromwell. Like, she just literally jumped from the stands and onto the field, and that's like the power of Amanda Cromwell. I don't know how she does it, but then she is standing out on the field with me, and we're watching the team run around, and they celebrating, doing this victory lap, and it was just super cool. Because you're thinking about a million things, the journey, and the holy, this is happening, and we did it, and it's just like very emotional. And then Sal was like, "Listen, Mish, listen." And then so I was like, "What?" And listening, and the whole crowd was chanting Akers, Akers, Akers. And it was like, "What? Get out of town." So that to me was like, what? Like, it really was so unexpected, but so cool. Like, it was just never something I would imagine happening ever. And I was just standing out there after getting the crap beaten out of me. And, then the entire crowd is yelling that. It was so cool. And then Amanda got to be there with me. So, after all she had been through, and so it was just really a cool moment to stand out there. And then later that night, the only thing I wanted was just give me a burger and fries, please. That's all I wanted. Burger, fries, and then I'll have a beer later. Just give me the burger and fries.
I can't blame you after that. But one of the other people who was on the field that day is UCF's current head coach.
TR.
Then Tiffany Roberts Sahaydak. And it's funny. I was trying to to send her a clip on Twitter, I think for the 20th anniversary of the China game. And all you see is just her kind of running around, jumping on people after the game. Yes. Tell me about how you connected with Tiff, and how did that play into her coming to UCF all these years later?
Yeah. Well, TR, what is she, like 5 foot? She's like this little short thing, right? Full of muscle. And she was like one of the fittest players on our team. We wore heart rate monitors and everything. And she, her heart rate was like 190, and she wasn't even breathing hard. So she just was an unbelievable athlete, right? And a kid. She was a kid. So she had a bunch of older sisters on that team, and God, I mean, I just remember, thank God she's here, because no one can outrun her. No one can outfit her. She just put her on the field and let her go, let her take care of business for us. And then, later she's at UCF. So I was on that committee to interview people for UCF. They asked me to come and will you interview? And so she was there. I was like, hey, TR. She's like, hey, Mish. She comes in. It was like so great to see her. And then she got the job, her and her husband. And so they've been there and they're doing great. It's kind of really cool to have, one of my national team player teammates at my own, at UCF where I grew up. And she's still taking care of the team and being awesome. So it's just like, it's really great. It's just a fun feeling.
It really is. I mean, and people don't realize she was so young. Yeah. How old was she? Like in the teens, or like in the 95? Because she was part of 95 team too, wasn't she?
Yeah. I think I can't remember. That's my,
Yeah.
But she was, God, how old was she? Maybe like 17, 16.
Yeah. She was one of your younger players. Yeah. She was one of the younger players. What was she like as a player? For those that didn't get to see her play as a teammate, what was her like? As she was one of the, you mentioned, nobody could outfit. Yeah. She was a Herman finalist during her college days at UNC and things like that. And, we've seen her up close now, obviously as a coach and the competitive side, but she was just as competitive as a player, right? Yeah,
she was just as competitive. Right? I mean, everybody who was on that team had to be competitive, and she was that her. Every player that's chosen for the team has something to offer that no one else has, along with, a lot of talent, equal talent in other areas. So her, she was just a kid, right? But her thing was that fitness ability. And she was, we'd put her on the field and say, do not let this player play. And she, that player, they should have just got like one of those portable chairs and sat down, because there's no way they could compete against her, because she never got tired. And if she missed, like if they got past her, she was so quick and fast, you had to like beat her 3 times. So she was such a benefit to have out there. So she came off the bench too. So a lot of times, once you're already in the rhythm of the game, and then something is happening, and the coach is like, TR, get in there. So she's already like head over heels above the physical ability of this other player. So that it just must have been so disheartening for the team for the opposition to have this other player come in, that there's just good luck with that, guys. So as her teammate, it was great to just go, okay, she's on that. I don't have to worry about it. And it frees you up to, do more, because that part is totally covered. And then she would just become up, and she's always like happy and chipper, and, did I do okay? Yeah. So she's just a really fun person, really nice person, works super hard. And she was a great teammate, great friend.
We're so lucky to have, here at UCF, to have that connection going back to you and Tiffany and Amanda and everything with the United States national team. It's just, it's so cool. So we're going to wrap up here. And by the way, thank you so much for giving of your time and your insight. And, it's wonderful to hear from you and for you to take this time for us. We're just eternally grateful. Before we go, I just wanted to ask you, what's next for you? Right. I know you're in Georgia right now working working with the horse farm and everything, but what's going to be the next thing for Michelle Akers?
Yeah, I don't know. Right now, I want my son to get his driver's license without killing us or wrecking my truck. So we've got about, a year. And then, we're trying to move to, Bend, Oregon area, to be closer to family. I've got family in Seattle and California. So we really want to get closer to family. So we're working on that part. I'm doing my horse rescue stuff, animal welfare stuff, but I'm kind of transitioning into changing that a little bit. So it's working with people as well. So, finding the balance of that and the people to do that with has been part of, the last couple of years, working on that. Working on funding. And, I'm trying to figure out how I want to be involved in soccer. So I think I'm working on a couple book ideas. One of them is that 91 World Cup. But the other is talking about how kind of the highlights of my career and then how that transferred over, how I made those highlights happen, the circumstances around involving those skills that were developed or mentality that was developed. And then how does that transfer off the field when you're done playing, because that's ultimately where everyone is, retired and off the field. So that's part of it. And oh my gosh, so we're talking about starting a podcast or being involved in setting up some podcast kind of programs. So that's kind of where I'm going. But I don't know. I'm kind of like kind of experimenting a little bit and seeing how excited I am about certain things, and then how do I integrate that into where I am right now.
Did I read where you might be a part of like a Netflix series of the U.S. soccer? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So, Netflix bought the 99 World Cup story. Jerry Longman, I think his last name is, wrote a book, The Girls of Summer, which is a great book. And Netflix bought that, and they're going to do a script off of that. So hopefully they'll start shooting next year. COVID got in the way of actually starting the process, but they said, with luck, next spring we could start shooting. So that is going to, the whole 99 World Cup story, that'll be really exciting and fun.
That's pretty awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I know. It's so exciting. We did like this video, social media video promo that was, I'm always like, I hate doing this video stuff. But then, I started, and me and my son were doing our section of it, and then they tied it all together. And oh my gosh, I had the best time. And then, it just reminds me how much fun I have with that group of people. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Gosh, that's awesome. I guess my last question is, what advice do you have for what's your advice to young women out there right now?
In soccer?
In soccer and life in general, especially given everything that we're going through right now. I mean, you talked about it before. What's the one thing that you want everybody to know? Well,
it's probably the hardest and most easiest thing, right? Everybody's asked me there was no soccer. There was no World Cup. There was no national team. There was no Olympics. There was nothing, no professional league. And you were playing, and what in the world? But I was just following, I was doing what I loved and following what my passion was, my internal passion. And by doing that, then I was living out my power. everybody has it. So I guess it's, now I'm 54, so I'm old now, but I still got some years to go, and by far not as mature as I want to be. But I think the balance is find how to live out your power and how to remain steadfast to that internal knowing of and being who you are, no matter what is happening or what people are saying around you. Because that's, I think your truth is the most powerful, and forces will get out of the way and come to you to as you follow that, to make what you're dreaming of and who you are a reality. So it's deep, but that's, COVID has just reinforced that. My whole career was about that. My rescuing horses, oh my gosh, and animals. A lot of people do that, and most people do it do it at great cost, but I love it so much. So I'm just trying to stay true to that, who I am inside. And I'm, trying to help my son do that. So as a dad, good luck when she gets her learner's permit, and keep those boys away from her, and, just empower her and let her know, she's the best of who she is, and she's the only one that can make it happen, but you support her no matter what. That's the message I would want to hear as a kid and as a girl and as me right now.
Well, this has been an honor. This has been an honor to finally get to talk to you. We've obviously been fans from afar for a long time. Just congrats. I just want to say on behalf of Jeff and all UCF fans and all soccer fans and sports fans in general, just congrats on all the success you've had. And on and off the field, because you made an impact just as much off the field, not only with what you've done in soccer, but what you've done with with the horses and all that. It's been remarkable, and hopefully we'll see you on a UCF campus down the road.
I know, I'd love to be there. I can't wait to come down and visit. And thanks for having me on. It was really great to be here and meet you guys and talk and chat. And let's do it again sometime soon.
Will do. Michelle Akers. Where can people find you, by the way?
Oh, michelleakers.org is my website. And I do Instagram and Twitter and all those things. So I forget it's something like official Michelle Akers or Michelle Akers official or something around that. And, I'm not a great poster, but I take lots of pictures of my animals. There's always some adventure happening here or funny thing. And I also talk a lot about the soccer in the current state. And also our past with lots of fun stories. So, check me out. I appreciate it.
That's awesome. And when things clear up, we're looking forward to seeing you back down here in Orlando. All right.
Can't wait. Thank you.
Wow. Once again, huge thanks to Michelle for spending that time with us and giving us so much great insight. Can't wait to see her when she comes back to Orlando. And we know how big she's been in the history of not just American soccer, but of course UCF soccer as well. A couple of reminders: you can follow Michelle on social media. She has a Facebook account, facebook.com/official Michelle Akers. She is also at official Michelle Akers on Instagram and on Twitter at Michelle Akers and the number 10, no underscores or spaces. Michelle Akers 10 on Twitter. And don't forget to stop by the official website of Michelle Akers, michelleakers.org, where she keeps everybody updated on her horse and animal rescue and outreach, as well as sharing stories and memorabilia from her time as one of the great athletes in the world. And once again, we're so thankful that she spent time with us here at Black and Gold Banneret. Of course, don't forget to check out our UCF 250, including the top 80 UCF female athletes of all time, which you can find at blackandgoldbanneret.com. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Black and Gold Banneret, at UCF_Banneret on Twitter, facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret, and of course, blackandgoldbanneret.com. Thanks once again to Michelle Akers. For Eric Lopez, I'm Jeff Sharon. We'll catch you later on this week with our regular show. But for now, once again, this has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.